Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to sunny Costa Rica. We got a Spyderco knife unboxing today. This came in the mail. This is the new Mule Team, the Mule Team 35. And this baby, this new Mule Team is something I'm really interested in trying out. It is a mule in, if you can see that, I doubt it. Terrible lighting in here. Whatever. You can't see it, but it is in CPM MagnaCut. And this is a brand new steel. Big shout out and thank you and congratulations to Laren from the Spyderco forums and from Knife Steel Nerds, who was essentially developed this steel. It's his recipe. And he did a little mad scientist thing. He's a professional metallurgist, I believe, and he got in this little science laboratory and designed a specifically for knives. And it's supposed to have really balanced properties. I want to test it. I don't want to say a whole lot about it based on properties and composition. I want to test it in cutting, but mainly I got this because it's looking like it's going to be fairly highly regarded for its corrosion resistance. And I've tested a lot of steels for corrosion resistance out in the kayak, saltwater fishing. So I kind of have like a basis of a hierarchy, let's say, of ranking of different steels and how they tend to perform. So I'm really curious to get this out there and torture test it on the water and see how it does. What's interesting about this is I have a suspicion, I've got a sneaky suspicion that's gonna do pretty well, which means I'm a biased tester. But I suspect that, I'm gonna try not to be a biased tester, but I have that suspicion because, as any of you Spyderco fans saw recently, when they came out with a new catalog, the Native 5 salt is being produced in MagnaCut now. And Spyderco, I've worked with them and their salt knives for a long time. I know Sal and Eric, I know all the rigorous testing they do on their salt line. They don't just slap the salt moniker on a knife and call it a salt. If they're putting this in a salt knife, it must have performed really well in their testing. Well, now it's going to undergo my testing, so we'll see. And look, I'm not pulling any punches. I'm gonna. Like I say, I'm going to beat it like a rented mule, and I'm going to torture test it on the kayak, and we'll see. I'll compare it to S30V, S90V, S110V, LC200N, H1, VanX, all the steels that I've tested out there, and I'll kind of like rank this one. It'll take some time, but it doesn't take that long in my environment. I'll know a lot in a few weeks. So I think what I'm going to do on this, I've got the hardware from Spyderco and the handles, and it comes with hardware. But here's what I'm going to do in the interest of science and in the interest of getting a really accurate reading on how this performs in corrosion resistance. Initially I'm not going to put the handles on it, because I don't want this steel in contact with any other steel. I don't want to risk the chance of galvanic corrosion. So I'm going to do something really ugly, probably. I'll probably just duct tape or whatever. I'm going to put something around the handle just to make it usable with no metal to metal contact. I want to see exactly how this steel performs on its own. Now, if we find out, or if I find out that it performs at a high level, like something like VanX or LC200N, then you can start addressing the issue of galvanic corrosion, adding other hardware. There's ways to deal with that, like dissimilar metals, when they're in contact with each other, can create corrosion issues that wouldn't normally exist when you're testing just one steel. So I want to leave this variable out for now and just test the steel. If this steel performs well, later I'll put in the hardware. If the hardware creates corrosion issues, then there's ways to deal with that from a production standpoint. You can, DLC coating on the hardware can make a big difference. Using different metals for hardware, having a hidden pin system like in my waterway design is another way of isolating that metal from contact with the salt. So there's all kinds of ways to deal with that. What I need to find out first is, how does this steel perform when it's, you know, tested alone without any contact? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it 3 to 4 weeks, and I'll walk out now and I'll kind of show you my basic testing environment so you get an idea of what this thing will be going through. All right. Okay, guys, here it is. This is, sorry for the traffic. This is the testing environment, minus the dry earth. We're going to be out in the salt water every day in this. And what I do, here's my mule team. This boat's going to be with me at all times in this kayak. Not only is this going to be with me whenever I'm on the water, it's going to be stored on this kayak 24/7. And here's where it's going to be stored. Inside this compartment, you can see the rust from other stuff being left in there. This compartment is nearly watertight. There's always a small like bit of saltwater residue down in there. So when I leave these knives in there to test them, I drop them in there. I don't rinse them off with fresh water. They're covered with salt water. There's salt water residue in the bottom of that. I come in from fishing. I close this up, and this thing sits here and bakes in the tropical sun for, you know, a day or 2 days, however long to the next time I go out. And what's happening is the water inside here is evaporating, and it leaves a salt film or steam over anything that's in there. It is a brutal environment for corrosion. I leave like a stainless steel hook in there for a couple of days and it just rusts out on me. It's a tough environment. So that is kind of like my corrosion box that I use to test these knives. And don't forget, like when they're not in there, they're going to be on the deck, literally covered in salt water, fish blood, guts, any kind of corrosive material you can imagine. So if this steel rusts, which it will, any steel will corrode at some point, I'm going to find out what the limit is. I promise you. So that's where we're at. Let's get after it. All right, guys, that's it. Let's get to testing. This is going to take me probably 3 to 4 weeks. I'm going to start a thread. I'll put this up on YouTube. I'll start a thread on the Spyderco forum where I'll kind of give, you know, weekly or daily or weekly updates on what I'm seeing. And, you know, once I've really got some information and some data about performance, I will either update this video or I'll make a new video and kind of talk about how the MagnaCut performed from the standpoint of corrosion resistance. Off we go.